Oof. Daniel Story describing this one as all of sport in one game. Agony, ecstasy, pain, grief, protest, joy, resentment. I mean, he goes on for a bit, but I mean, there's everything. And it did really have everything, didn't it? Including heartbreak for Tom Williams.
Yes. Yeah, it did. I did find myself thinking as the game wore on that if I wasn't feeling quite as nervous as I was at that point and so consumed by stress, that it would probably be quite an enjoyable game to watch for the neutral, because it was it was quite an open game. I mean, I think Iran were worthy winners in the end. I don't think you could really complain about that. I mean, the real frustration for Wales fans was that Wales just didn't turn up. There was a positive halftime reaction in that opening game against the US, and you thought, well, that's a bit of the Wales that we've got to know and love these last few years, and the late equaliser that Gareth Bale scored from the penalty spot. But Wales just didn't show up at all today.
Iran, by contrast, looked like a team transformed from their opening game.
Yeah, I think that was maybe a slightly false reflection on them against England. A really, really good side. Carlos Queiroz, of course, has got them largely playing quite defensively, but generally really, really good at that. So good, as we saw today, at sort of sitting off teams, can very much hit them on the counter-attack. And that really just became the pattern of the second half, was wave after wave. And there were points where the Welsh midfield was really stretched. I thought they probably should have made some subs early to try and control that, because it felt like it was not quite waiting to happen, but they were just allowing too many of these transitions, too many of these counter-attacks, and eventually they sort of got broken down, but I think they needed to do something to tweak that earlier.
Okay. Helping that breakdown was the fact that Wayne Hennessy picked up a red card. Hennessy pulling off another tribute to a famous German, if you will, with his Schumacher-esque tackle on...
another evil German.
Yeah, on Mehdi Taremi, and eventually got the red for that. Belatedly, but he walked. And then, even then, it still took until, as we mentioned earlier, the 98th minute before that poor clearance from Joe Allen allowed Cheshmi to beat Danny Ward. And away they go. And then another one came afterwards, because by that point, Wales were caught trying to find an equaliser.
Yeah, I mean, by that point of the game, I think that the feeling from a Wales perspective was that we had rode our luck quite a lot, notably in that sort of 7-second passage of play where Iran hit the post twice, and then Sardar Azmoun hits the rebound against Wayne Hennessy from a distance of about 3 yards. And I think at that point, a 0-0 would have felt like a decent outcome in the circumstances. So yeah, when that beautifully struck shot by Chesney flashed in, it did feel like a bit of a sickener. And at the same time, you can't begrudge Iran having this moment, having this victory, knowing what they're going through. And I still find watching them sing or not sing the anthem and sort of trying to get a sense of how the crowd are reacting. I still don't fully understand, what is going on, but it's obviously an extremely tense, extremely uncomfortable situation for their players to be in, and that kind of explosion of joy at the end. Even as a very disappointed Wales fan, you couldn't begrudge them that.
Liam, what do you think then? What are Team Melli's chances of beating USA?
I think it's a really, really exciting game. Obviously, I know there's underlying narratives with it, but style-wise, they're very clashy. You've got USA, who, as they showed against Wales, primarily like to be a high possession side. They like to be expansive and play lots of passes, whereas Iran are really content to sit off teams and hit them in transition, which they showed against Wales. And I think that's the perfect thing at the World Cup, when you get these different clashing styles, can make for really exciting games, because they're going to look to exploit each other where each other are weak and vulnerable, and there's going to be lots of good individual battles going on as well.
All right, but that's the kind of team that USA struggle against, no? As they did indeed against Wales in the opening game.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think we saw tonight, playing against England, how they do benefit when teams are more expansive. So whether they try to sort of tweak their approach and maybe they try and go with less possession, I think it's going to create a real headache really for Greg Berhalter in particular.
Well, something I noticed watching Iran today was the sophistication of their attacking transitions. And as a fan of the team they were playing against, it's actually quite terrifying how quickly they suddenly switch onto being on the front foot when they recover the ball, in their defensive third. And that wasn't something we really saw too much against England. And yeah, it's something that they will probably have opportunities to do against the US.
And will their goalkeeper, first choice goalkeeper, now be back from concussion protocol as well?
I don't know. It's a very good question because Hosseini, who was in for him today, looked excellent, I thought.
But he can't throw the ball 70 yards.
That's true. That is true. All right, Iran against USA is coming up at 7 o'clock UK time next Tuesday, while at the same time you'll have Wales against England. Tom, 64 years and it could be all over with that game.
Yeah. I mean, there is still hope. And for Wales fans who are nostalgic for a time when our qualification campaigns would basically be over, barring mathematical impossibilities or mathematical improbabilities, this is a little taste of what that was like, in that we can still go through, but we need to beat England and we need a draw in the other game. And those are the only circumstances in which we'll qualify. And just to sort of make a wider point about Wales, I think something that really came through watching that game today was that something that we've been very grateful for in the last few years as Wales fans has been this sense that the Euro 2016 generation, albeit getting on a little bit, are all still there, are all still hanging around, and they're in place to pass the baton on to this new generation of younger players, your Nico Williamses, your Brennan Johnsons, etc. And I think what we actually saw in that game against Iran today was that Euro 2016 generation, it looked very spent. I mean, you can understand why Rob Page would be reluctant to substitute Aaron Ramsey or Gareth Bale, because they are, Bale in particular, and as we said on the podcast on Monday, moments players capable of just producing a goal from nowhere. But they were both passengers today, and in sort of modern international football, in any sort of elite standard of football, you can't afford to carry two players around with you, and that's what Wales were doing. And yeah, if this is the end of our World Cup, I think it'll be interesting to see what role those two players in particular are going to play. Once we start looking to the qualifiers for Euro 2024.
Hello there. If you've enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to this channel? And if you'd like more Totally Football Show content, then just search for us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Not an Athletic subscriber yet? Then just head to theathletic.com/totally to find out our latest entry offer.